What started as a normal training session for Ken Peters turned into a desperate struggle to survive. Ken's just one of several victims of orca attacks in a chain of terrifying tragedies that shook the world.
I was basically sitting on her bottom jaw with the teeth on my thighs, and I was hanging on to the top of her head.
They're called killer whales for a reason, and while the movies might portray them in a different light, orcas will do almost anything to be free. Found across all of Earth's oceans with endless room to swim around, it's no surprise that they don't do well in pools.
We stored these whales in what we call a module, which was 20 feet across and 30 feet deep, and the lights were all turned out.
Probably led to what I think is a psychosis.
Marine parks, such as SeaWorld and Marineland, have been scrutinized for their mistreatment of orcas. As highlighted in the documentary Blackfish, many die while under the park's watchful eye. Over the years, experts and even former SeaWorld trainers have spoken out about the treatment of whales in captivity.
All the drugs, the premature deaths, all those whales are doped up on so much medication, it's unbelievable.
So when we capture them, like Lolita, we take away from them the two most important aspects of their life, the world of sound and their family.
While these orca attacks may look like accidents, many experts believe they were simply natural reactions from distressed animals who have suffered abusive living conditions. Something popular marine parks tried to cover up, time and time again.
Once captured, the critics say these beautiful creatures who were used to swimming hundreds and hundreds of miles a day are then stuck in, for them, what is the equivalent of a swimming pool.
How did a publicity stunt with an orca turn ugly? What caused Keto the killer whale to snap on his trainer? And what controversies has SeaWorld tried to cover up? Stick around as we dive into some of the deadliest orca attacks. As one of the top predators of the oceans, orcas are a cornerstone of their ecosystem, keeping populations in check. Reaching lengths of more than 25 feet and weighing nearly 12,000 pounds, these meat eaters devour everything. Fish, stingrays, sharks, seals, and even minke whales. Oddly enough, orcas are part of the dolphin family, but given their sheer size, they're often mistakenly called whales. One of the ocean's most intelligent creatures, they are also very social. They're known to form large groups of extended families which can have 20 orcas in them, called pods. These pods do everything together, from playing and nurturing their young to masterful hunts showcasing their incredible intelligence. I would not want to be a seal in those waters. Poor guys, yeesh. And if you happen to be boating in orca territory, I hope you're a good yachtsman and don't smell like fish.
It's happened. The launch of the greatest spectacle the West has ever seen.
In the 60s, marine parks started sprouting up across the US and became big business for the tourism industry. Housing dolphins, sea lions, and various attractions, the parks were doing well, but still needed a proper spectacle to draw big crowds. With their incredible size and ability to be trained and perform tricks, orcas were a perfect fit. And it was a chance for people to get up close and personal with an animal they would likely never see in the wild. For years, performers did dazzling stunts with orcas without a hitch, and business was booming. But it wouldn't be long before the negative effects on captive orcas would show. Many were literally plucked from their family pods, poorly fed, and forced to perform regularly, all of which clearly took a toll. When you add a trainer into the mix with an agitated animal, it's only a matter of time before things go wrong. Some may feel they have a special bond with the creatures, but experts have a different opinion.
The only connection that the orca have to the trainer is that they give them the food. If you went in there and fed them for a week, they'd have that connection with you too.
Unfortunately, that connection doesn't mean the orcas won't turn on their trainers, something Ken Peters learned the hard way. Before we dive into another orca attack, let's talk about something just as scary. Your personal data being out there for anyone to buy. Seriously. Delete Me is the sponsor of today's episode, and they're doing something really important. Removing your personal information from data broker sites. I've been using Delete Me myself, and the results are wild. They found my name, address, phone number, stuff I didn't even realize was floating around online, and started removing it from the web. Here's how it works. Data brokers collect and sell your info, like your home address, phone number, and even info about your family members. That can open you up to identity theft, phishing scams, and even stalking. All of that puts you and your loved ones at risk. Delete Me scans for that info and removes it from hundreds of data broker sites. You get a privacy report in 7 days, and they keep scanning and removing your data throughout the year. It's hands-free and honestly a huge relief knowing my data is being pulled offline without me having to do anything, especially if you value your privacy like I do. That's why I'm holed away in this top secret bunker. You can try it too and get 20% off by going to joindeleteme.com/howtosurvive and using my promo code HowToSurvive at checkout. So scan the QR code and keep your data safe. Now back to the show.
It's a deadly ballet. This killer whale grabbing trainer Ken Peters by the feet. 5,000 pounds of muscle, teeth the size of bananas.
Ken Peters worked alongside Kasatka, a female orca captured in 1978 at just 2 years old. Kasatka had a history of aggression towards humans and was known for biting their thighs, legs, and feet. Between 1989 and 1993, there were 3 Kasatka attacks. 2 of them involved Peters. As one of SeaWorld's most experienced trainers, Peters wasn't concerned. That is, until the unimaginable happened. Before we get pulled deeper into the waters, make sure to like and subscribe for more incredible survival stories. On November 29th, 2006, Ken was doing his routine performance with Kasatka at SeaWorld San Diego. Everything was going according to plan.
With no apparent warning, the killer whale grabs his feet and pulls him underwater for close to a minute. Then it brings him to the surface where the trainer pets the whale, tries to calm it, only to be yanked down again.
While being dragged underwater and occasionally thrashed side to side, Peters had only one choice: hold his breath and hope that Kasatka would let go. Other trainers nearby jumped into action, throwing a net in Ken's direction. They used hand signals to try to get Kasatka to obey, but it wasn't working. On the verge of blacking out, Kasatka finally loosened her grip on Ken's foot, and he managed to break free. Ken quickly made his way to the other trainers and was helped out of the water. Miraculously, his foot sustained the only injuries during the attack. Many experts believe Ken's calm demeanor and gentle rubbing and stroking of Kasatka's back while he was pulled underwater helped him escape. I gotta hand it to this guy. I would be way more panicked if I was being drowned by a killer whale. Carol Ray, a former trainer, felt Kasatka did what she did to send a clear message: enough was enough.
I think that Kasatka was trying to make a point. Once they finally come to the surface that first time, she's making a point by keeping him captive like that.
Following the attack, Ken Peters was treated for a broken foot and made a full recovery. In 2011, he was called to testify about the death of another SeaWorld employee, Don Brancheau. In court, Peters said the risk of working with orcas is acceptable, stating, "I could get killed in a car accident today, but I still get in a car." The difference is that cars aren't living, breathing, emotional beings, and they certainly aren't capable of repeatedly trying to crush you, which was the unfortunate case for trainer Steve Aibel. Steve Aibel was a trainer and performer at SeaWorld San Antonio. He regularly worked with an orca named Kayukit, also known as Kai, the son of Tillicum, a now infamous killer whale responsible for the death of 3 of his trainers. Weighing 9,000 pounds, Kai was often called a gentle giant. Given Steve's 10-year history working alongside him, he never could have predicted what would happen on July 27th, 2004. What started as a typical performance in front of a crowd of families with young kids quickly turned into a terrifying spectacle. Bursting out of the water to either crush or drown him, Kai can be seen repeatedly slamming his body onto Steve.
Hey, close your eyes, kid.
The attack lasted for nearly 10 minutes, with the audience and other trainers looking on in horror, knowing they couldn't do much to help Steve. Finally, the whale calmed down, and Steve got out of the pool unharmed. Speaking on the attack, Steve explained, "It looked like Kai lost a little bit of focus. I wasn't frightened. I think that by being calm throughout the process, it helped to calm Kai down. Steve also suggested that because the whale was near breeding age, his hormones might have gotten the best of him. A member of the audience claimed the outburst wasn't random, explaining the whale was jumping all over the place, then it tried to take a bite out of the guy. It seems just like Ken Peters, Steve's ability to stay calm during the incident is the reason he wasn't killed by Kai the orca. After the attack, Steve continued to work with whales, but Kai was no longer on display to the public, nor did he ever work with trainers again. Thankfully, the water likely helped to reduce Steve's injuries, but that's not always the case. On November 21st, 1987, 26-year-old San Diego SeaWorld trainer John Sillick was performing a routine with Corky the orca. Everything was going well, with Sillick even jumping off Corky's nose and diving into the water. As part of the routine, Sillick started to ride Corky around the tank, and that's when a series of devastating events started to unfold. Orca 2, another killer whale weighing 12,000 pounds, erupted out of the water, landing on top of John and Corky. The attack crushed John, nearly killing him. With severe fractures in both hips, pelvis, ribs, and legs, he needed 6 surgeries over the span of 14 months. This included 3 pounds of pins, plates, and screws to hold him together, and needing to use a wheelchair to get around. A lawsuit followed, and it got messy.
It was John's fault, John's fault. He was supposed to get off that whale, and for years I believed that, and I told people that.
Sillick was relatively new to working with orcas, having less than 2 years of experience at the time of the attack. Clearly, SeaWorld didn't want to be held responsible. John and 2 other injured trainers filed a lawsuit against SeaWorld. After a long legal battle, the case was finally settled out of court, but on strange terms. The 3 trainers had gag orders imposed on them, meaning they couldn't speak about the case publicly.
No comment.
It also meant documents and evidence related to the lawsuit had to be kept under wraps.
We weren't told much about it, other than it was trainer error. And especially when you're new into the program, you don't really question a whole lot. Well, years later, when you actually look at the footage, you go, you know what, he didn't do anything wrong.
However, experts don't believe his inexperience with the orcas led to the attack, nor do they believe it was trainer error. Instead, they think Orca 2 might have been angry or jealous for him to behave that way. A source within SeaWorld claimed prior to the show, Orca 2 was showing signs of arousal, and they described it as riding a mare in season in the presence of a stallion. In other words, Orca 2 was looking for a mate and saw John riding on top of Corky as a threat. So can orcas experience jealousy? Well, scientists believe it's possible, especially when being held captive with few options for mating partners. After the attack, SeaWorld told trainers to stay out of the water and to stop riding the whales. For the time being, at least. And this wasn't the first time something went wrong with a person riding an orca. For Annette Eckis, what started as an incredible opportunity turned into a painful mistake.
A diver jumps in immediately to free Ann, but he's no match for this 4-ton whale.
On April 20th, 1971, SeaWorld PR Secretary Annette Eckis was going to ride on the back of Shamu, a nearly 9,000-pound killer whale, as a publicity stunt. Eckis worked full-time for SeaWorld and occasionally did more than her typical secretary duties. When she was asked to ride the back of Shamu, excited by the opportunity, she was happy to do so. Shamu was captured in October 1965 and became SeaWorld's flagship orca, the park's biggest attraction. That is, until the killer whale, who was just 5 years old, showed the world how dangerous captive orcas can be. Initially, things were going smoothly for Ann, who worked with trainers to get comfortable riding on the back of the whale before filming the stunt. Ann successfully did 2 laps around the tank while on the back of Shamu, wearing nothing but a bikini. On her 3rd lap, things took a turn for the worse.
Ann slips, and Shamu spokes.
Shamu ignored Ann's signal and did something no one was expecting. Well, almost no one. Shamu bucked Ann off his back and then started to attack her. Even with the help of numerous trainers, he proved to be too powerful. Biting Ann's leg, the trainers had to pry Shamu's mouth open to get him to release.
A handler pushes a pole down on the whale's tongue, and he lets go.
Following the attack, Anne was hospitalized for 5 days, treated for 20 bites, and required nearly 200 stitches. She suffered from puncture wounds and lacerations, which left scars. A lawsuit was inevitable, and it highlighted the negligence of SeaWorld trainers and the director of the animal training department, Kent Burgess. Lawyers revealed that Shamu had a history of attacking people, including a swimsuit model and a trainer before this incident. Trainers also noticed Shamu's tail fluttering on his second ride around the tank with Annette, a clear sign that he was agitated. Still, no one advised her not to go around for a third lap. SeaWorld was required to cover Anne's medical bills and pay her $75,000 as a settlement. This incident was one of the first public captive orca attacks, garnering lots of media attention. Since then, dozens of similar attacks have occurred, with SeaWorld and other marine parks doing their best to downplay the severity. But when someone loses their life as a result, they can only hide so much of the truth. This is Keto the Orca, and our final story involves him and his former trainer, Alexis Martinez. Martinez was a trainer at Loro Park, a zoo in Spain that was given 4 orcas by SeaWorld in 2006. When transitioning from working with dolphins to killer whales, Martinez was aware of the risks and considered quitting twice, citing safety concerns. On December 24, 2009, Martinez was gearing up for a Christmas show featuring Keto, a 6,600-pound killer whale with a history of not responding to its trainer's commands. This move to Loro Park was Keto's 4th in 7 years, and due to a lack of stable social hierarchy, he occasionally showed aggression. Things were going well with Keto that day, but when he repeatedly failed to complete the routine, he was denied a reward, frustrating him. Other trainers working alongside Martinez felt they were losing control and wanted Martinez to leave the pool. While one of the trainers tried to get Keto's attention, he made his way toward the exit. But the distraction didn't work. Keto rushed toward Martinez and slammed into him with his nose, driving him to the bottom of the pool. At this point, Martinez was unconscious and severely injured. The other trainers frantically called Keto back to the surface, and he followed their commands. For a moment. Keto then went back down, coming up a second time, now with Martinez sprawled over his nose. Once again, he was dropped to the bottom. When the trainers could secure Keto behind a gate and get to Martinez, he had been underwater for nearly 3 minutes. When he was finally pulled to safety, he had blood coming from his nose and mouth. Sadly, Martinez didn't make it. An autopsy revealed that the cause of death was drowning. Multiple cuts, bruises, and fractures to his ribs and sternum, a lacerated liver, 2 collapsed lungs, and bite marks consistent with the teeth of an orca were all reported. SeaWorld and Loro Park downplayed the incident, claiming it was an accident and bad luck. It got little media attention, but raised concerns about working with captive orcas. However, just 2 months after Martinez's death, Dawn Brancheau, another trainer at SeaWorld, sadly suffered a similar fate in front of a live audience. An investigation into her death led to more questions regarding what happened with Martinez and the regulations in place for the well-being of orcas confined to water parks. Especially because Sillick, the orca responsible for Dawn's death, was involved in a handful of others before her incident. We'll uncover Sillick's terrifying killing spree on another episode of How to Survive. Thanks again to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. If you want your personal info off the internet, head to my link in the description and get 20% off.